some of the examples that we didn't get to in class and help reteach anyone that might be struggling. So first we're going to go over example, actually let's go back to D in the last one. We didn't do that one in some of my classes. So in example D, we're given that the measure of angle 6 is 35 degrees. We're asked to find the measure of angle 2. So again, if you're struggling, I do suggest that you highlight the parallel lines to help you see inside, interior, or outside, exterior. So what type of angles do we think 6 and 2 are? Well, one's outside, one's inside, so they're not interior or exterior. This one's in the top right corner. This one's in the top right corner. So these are corresponding angles. We know corresponding angles are congruent if our lines are parallel, which they are. So if this is 35, this one has to be 35 as well. And then the measure of angle 8, there's two ways we can find that. We can either look here and we can notice we have vertical angles. We know vertical angles are congruent. Or we also could have done alternate exterior to angle 2. But this one should be 35 degrees, either by verticals or alternate exterior angles. Okay, the other example we didn't get to in class was, for some of my classes, was example B with our algebra problems. So, first of all, again, I'm going to highlight my parallel lines. Notice the markings indicate that they are indeed parallel. They give me, in this case, the measure of angle 2 is x plus 4. And the measure of angle 6 is 2x minus 6. Now the first thing you have to ask yourself is to classify what type of angles are these? Well, they are inside of my lines, so they're interior, both of them are inside, and they alternate. So these angle 2 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. And we know alternate interior angles are congruent when we have parallel lines, which we do. And we know that the definition of congruence is that their measurements are equal. So we know the measure of angle 2 has to equal the measure of angle 6, which would be the definition of congruent angles. And then we can substitute in. So we'll have x plus 4 equals 2x minus 6. We'll go ahead and solve that. Subtracting x on both sides. Adding 6, we'll get x is 10. Take that 10 and plug it back in. 10 plus 4 is 14. 10 times 2 is 20, minus 6 is also 14. So that's a good way to check it and make sure that we do get 14. So 2 is 14 degrees, 6 is 14 degrees. And then last but not least, they ask us to find the measure of angle 1. Which the measure of angle 1, if you notice, is going to be supplementary to 2 because they form a linear pair. So we would do 180 minus 14, which will get me 166. So I always want to look for vertical angles still, linear pairs still, but we're also adding in these new types of angles that we can see in our parallel lines. And then example C, I believe I got to in every class, but I'm going to go over it again just in case. So again, we have our parallel lines. Let's highlight those. And we see that the measure of angle 7 is 8x plus 1. And the measure of angle 6 is 4x minus 1. We're not given any other angles. So now, again, we want to classify these. We have our parallel lines. So both of these angles are inside of the parallel line. So these are some type of interior angles. Are they alternating interior angles or are they same side? Well, here's our transversal. These are not alternating, they are same side. And we learned through our theorems and postulates today that same side interior angles, when we have parallel lines, which we do, they are going to be supplementary. Which means they sum to 180. So we can say that the measure of angle 7 plus the measure of angle 6 has to equal 180 by the definition of supplementary angles. And then we can substitute in and add these measures together. Combining our like terms, 1 minus 1 is 0. And then we would divide to get x is 15. Take the 15 and plug it back in. And we should get the measure of angle 7 is 121 degrees. The measure of angle 6, we'll do 4 times 15 minus 1, which would be 60 minus 1, which is 59. Now, when they ask you for this additional angle, I would always make sure you put the angles in your picture to help you. Angle 8, 2 ways to notice it. We could do a linear pair here with 7 and 8. These would be supplementary or add to 180. Or if you notice, angle 8 and angle 6, those are in the same relative location. Looking at these angles here, we can see this is in the bottom left-hand corner, and this is in the bottom left-hand corner. So those would be corresponding. We know corresponding angles are congruent. So that we could do. For anyone that might be watching the video, I will do a couple extra questions that are like your homework, since some of you might be struggling on the ones that make shapes. So, for example, the homework question number 6, I'm not going to do the question, do one similar to it. So I'm going to do different numbers in it, but I'm going to give you a similar example in case anyone's actually watching this video. And they do tell us in this picture, so again, this is similar to 6, it's not exactly 6. They do tell us that those are parallel. So again, when you're doing these problems, I would especially highlight your parallel lines. Excuse me, they don't tell you those are parallel. They tell you these ones are parallel, my bad. So I'm going to highlight these ones. So again, we're going to look at this. Let's do this one first. This is a transversal. What type of angles are these? Well, they're both inside of my parallel lines. They are on the same side, so these right here are same side interior angles. Because our lines are parallel, that means that these have to be supplementary. So they have to add to be 180. So 180 minus 70 will get me 110 degrees. So the measure of angle 1 equals 110 degrees. Go along to our second transversal. This time I'm looking for the measure of angle 2. So what type of angles are 2 and 6? Well, those are both inside my parallel lines, but this time they alternate across. So alternate interior angles we know are congruent. So if this is 60, this also has to be 60. Okay, so again, that one's similar to 6 if you're struggling. If you guys are really struggling on the homework, make sure you do come in and see me in homework.